I know that this game happened almost a month ago, but it doesn't mean it shouldn't be analyzed. When I was watching this game, one of the most important keys to the game was how Draymond Green would defend Chris Paul. As simple as that sounds, there were a lot of adjustments made throughout the game, which we're going to go through now. The first thing that Green did was pressure Paul in the backcourt, and the reason is because he doesn't want the Suns to get into an offensive rhythm. By making it difficult on CP3 to bring the ball up, this gives less time for them to get into their offensive sets. Besides pressuring the ball handlers, Green also went under the pick and roll when guarding Chris Paul. Now this might sound dumb because Paul can shoot the ball, but the reason Draymond's doing this is because he wants to prevent the switch as much as possible. In the first matchup, the Warriors decided to switch for most of the game and they got burned by Aiden. That doesn't mean they didn't switch at all in this game, but when they could prevent it, they would. The other reason is that CP3's most important task is to get his teammates involved. With how good DeAndre Ayton is at screening, trying to go over allows Paul to get into the paint where it becomes a dual threat. And with the Suns knowing that Green was going under, they started implementing double screens early. Green pressures Paul into the front court and CP3 gets him with a nice crossover, which then flows into a double screen and an easy Ayton hook shot. One thing you should notice is how the Suns try to involve Otto Porter in the pick and roll. Now why does this matter? Well, it's because in the first matchup, Chris Paul wanted him as his matchup down the stretch, and he was able to get into the paint and create good shots down the stretch to effectively end the game. The Suns found success when they made Porter as a primary defender, as you could see in these plays. Now, some of you have asked in the past how I learned to watch basketball, and honestly it comes down to just watching more games, and with SeatGeek, you can do just that. Today's video is sponsored by SeatGeek. To put it in simplest terms, SeatGeek is an app that helps you buy tickets in the easiest way possible. They combine concerts, sports games, festivals, and more into one place where it makes your life easier to purchase the tickets to your favorite events. I recently used the app myself to buy tickets to my first Celtics game last week, and let me tell you, it only took a couple steps to make it happen. To find the best deal, make sure to look for the green dots. Green means good and red means bad. If you're interested, check the link in my description, use the code Daniel, and you can get $20 off your first purchase. So with the need to protect Porter and more importantly to prevent any sort of switching, the Warriors resorted to a trap. Green ices the pick and roll and Porter comes to trap Paul in the corner, which forces the ball out of his hands. On the double screen, Green goes over the first one to prevent any sort of switch with Porter, but under the second screen, and this turns into a Booker mid-range jumper. And the Suns adjust later on by having Booker flare out on an Ayton screen, so now he has Looney on him. But even then, the Warriors are fine with Looney guarding him since he has a knack for staying in front of smaller players and he contests a shot nicely. And I think this is a win for both teams. Booker gets a shot he likes, and the Warriors prevent any sort of ball movement on this play. Now with that being said, the Warriors also used the trap on regular pick and rolls in the second half. When Ayton was the screener, Looney would hedge hard on Paul to help Green out. As brilliant as Chris Paul is, he's only 6 feet tall, which means there are passes he can't make over length, and this seemed to bother the Suns in that third quarter. And so the overall theme here is the focus on preventing Chris Paul from using the ball screen, which the coaches implored throughout the game. Even with Kuminga on Paul, you can hear Steve Kerr giving him instructions.
Onto himself.
Chris Paul back out to Crowder. Bielitsa closes out on him. Good denied defense by Kuminga on CP3.
Now what happened when Draymond was off the ball? Remember, he is the guy who helps put his teammates in the right place. But before I show how, Monty Williams' comments going into the fourth quarter is really telling here.
Plus minutes, your guys were able to make runs. What have the folks around Devin Booker, around Chris Paul given you today, and what do they need to do to close this out?
Well, we got to continue to play fast and space around those guys. When we slow down and allow them to shift, it bogs us down a little bit.
Thanks, Monty. Merry Christmas and good luck.
When he mentions how the Suns playing slow allows them to shift, I think he was referring to the Warriors defense in terms of how they can put their guys in the right position to guard, and the leader of that is Draymond. On this possession, Booker wants Bjelica, but Green tells him to stay on Aiden so he can't get that matchup. This effectively slows down the possession and turns into a mid-range jumper. Here, Booker is going to get the ball to isolate on Gary Payton, and Draymond shifts over to shade him. He tells Curry to put a body on Aiden, and Green's able to break up the lob. Later in the game, Booker has the ball and you can hear some hot mics.
What's interesting to me is Steph Curry's minutes have changed this year and sort of have to continue to evolve.
So essentially, Booker wants Cam Johnson to screen to get the mismatch with Bjelica. Now when Draymond says keep going, he wants Witherspoon to blitz Booker and rotate accordingly. And that's the issue when defenses know who's trying to attack without anything else happening. This allows the Warriors to anticipate each pass and contest the shots effectively. Now the Suns put a nice wrinkle here. Cam Payne initiates the pick and roll, but instead of trying to get a mismatch, McGee goes down to set the screen for Cam Johnson, who makes the three. But they didn't really do this enough when Paul and Booker were on the floor, which made their lives difficult. So one thing I mentioned in the past is the idea that players use the free throw line to figure out matchups. After Booker gets a big boy and one by finishing over Payton, Green changes Payton's matchup from Booker to Crowder, and you can see Booker finding that out and says in response, "Fucking tough out. I'm just in your head, bruh." I don't know how much Booker could talk since that was his only basket on him, but it's interesting that the Warriors decided to change that matchup. And finally, the way Draymond helps off ball slowed Booker and Paul down on pick and rolls. I mentioned earlier how Paul wanted Porter as his matchup. With that here, Green from the corner stunts at Paul to get him to pass, and he recovers nicely to Crowder in the corner. And here, Paul gets Curry as his matchup, and he puts a really nice half spin to get into the paint. Now Paul and Green are reading each other's eyes. It looks like CP3 has an open mid-range jumper, but with Draymond's eyes locked on Paul, this makes Chris want to pass to the corner, but Green anticipates the pass and recovers nicely to make Crowder dribble, and this turns into a successful defensive stop. With Booker looking to score, he uses the crossover to get around Payne, but Draymond comes in and steals the ball from him. And so I hope you guys got a better understanding of what happened on the defensive end with Green on the floor. Having someone who's just as smart as Chris Paul is necessary when you're playing some of the best contenders in the NBA. With that being said, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.